guys, welcome to the Electron Academy. My name is Hussein and I'm going to be your instructor for this Python series. So today we're going to be covering conditionals, a very interesting and very important part of Python or any other programming language for that matter. So let's just get right into it. So keywords for today's video. So the first one is conditionals. Now conditionals perform different actions depending on whether a specified condition evaluates to true or evaluates to false. What does that mean? Now you have a condition, right? And if that condition is true, something happens. And if it's false, something else happens. That's basically what a conditional does. So we're going to be covering that today. And there are three different types of conditionals. Well, you can't say they're different types. There's one type, but they have like three subsections, I guess you could call it. All of them are for conditionals specifically. So that's conditionals. That's the definition of conditionals itself. Now statements. Now statements express actions that are to be carried out by the program. So normal statements that we've written up to now are creating variables, using the print function, printing a variable onto screen. All of those are technically statements because we are expressing actions that need to be carried out by the program in the form of Python code, right? So that's basically what a statement is. Now the third thing we're going to be covering is indentation. Now indentation is a very important part of programming language, and it's basically the indentation of blocks of code to convey program structure. Now while you're using conditionals, while you're creating conditionals, you need to indent all of the statements that are inside the conditional, and we'll see how it is done in the practical part, but it's basically called indentation, where you have blocks of code that convey program structure. Now the next thing we're going to be covering is Boolean. So the Boolean data type, and it basically means if something is true or something is false. So let's say if I give the condition, so if something is true, do this. Else it is false, do that. So we can create that using a conditional, and we can specify the Boolean data type, which is basically just true or false, so that the program can go on and make decisions through this data type. Now the last thing we're going to be covering is double equal sign operator, which is just two equal signs, and these compare the values on the right with the value on the left. So how do normal equal signs work? You have 7 on the left and you have an equals, and then you have 5 on the right, right? That doesn't really make any sense specifically, but let's say if I said 6 plus 7 equals 5, right? So on the left side of the equal sign I have 6 plus 7, which is 13, and on the other side of the equals I have the result. So 6 plus 7 is 13, and I actually put 13 on the right side. But with double equals, what you do is the thing on the left side is not added, or there's no operation applied, it's compared with the value on the right. So let's say on the left you have 7 and on the right you have 7 as well. So 7 is, when you compare it to 7 on the left, 7 is the same. 7 equals 7. 7 is the same as 7. So the program is true and it'll execute. But let's say 7 equals 6. 7 is not the same as 6, hence the program will not continue. So that's how the double equal sign operator works. And now let's get into the practical part of our video, where we're going to be exploring conditionals using the Boolean data type, the equal sign operator, indentation, and all the other keywords that we have covered today. So let's get right into it. Okay guys, now on to the practical part of the video. So what we're going to be doing here is covering conditionals. So how do you define a conditional? You start by typing if, okay? So this is how you start, and what if is basically, it's like the conditional. So imagine you're specifying if something happens, then, oh well, if this condition is fulfilled, then I'm going to do this thing. So that's basically what if is. So let's say if I say if 7 equals 6, and then what you do over here is you supply a colon, you give a colon at the end without any spaces. If you give spaces, then the program won't work. Then if you press enter, you can see that it automatically does an indentation over here. So after the colon, everything you write beneath it that's part of the if function should be indented. Otherwise, if you do this, then the if program or Python won't accept whatever you write over here and below as part of this if conditional over here. So you have to make sure that you indent like this, and over here you write what it's actually going to do. So let me print 7 is not the same as 6. Now this may be looking pretty confusing, but once I'm done with this command over here, then I'm going to explain what it actually does. So if I run the program over here, as you can see, nothing happens. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna erase this. I'm gonna say 7 is the same as 6. Then I'm gonna supply an else, and 7 is not the same as 6. Okay, and you can see the second one prints. Now let me explain this program in detail. So first of all, I put if. Okay, so this is how you start a conditional. You have to write the if keyword. Okay, so after if, what you have to specify is the condition. So this is the condition over here. 7 equals 6. So you're comparing the numbers 7 and 6. Now since they are not the same, whatever is gonna be beneath the if function, in other case it's this, we indented it, that's why Python counts this line as part of this if. We can put multiple lines of code as well, so I can put print this also, and I can do this as well. So all these three lines of code over here are part of this if function, I mean if conditional. Keep in mind that this is technically not a function. It's called a conditional, so don't mix it up. I mix it up myself sometimes, but you shouldn't call this a function. This is called a conditional, okay? And whatever is beneath these are called the statements of the conditional, and this is the actual condition over here. So that's the part of this the parts of this program over here. So the statement is indented beneath the if. So you have the if keyword, you have your condition, and you have what's gonna happen if your condition is true. And then you can see that I put else over here with a colon. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna supply else if, and then I'm gonna supply else, and over here what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to introduce you to else if and else. It's not actually written as else if, it's written as Alif, like this, so ELIF, and this is how you actually write that program. So the reason it's giving me this red squiggly line over here is if I hover over it, it'll say invalid syntax. So how you're supposed to write this, you're supposed to give another condition over here. That's what you're supposed to do, okay? So what I'm gonna do is okay, right, okay, over here what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write 7 equals 7, like this, and then over here I'll just write nothing works, sad face. Now let me start explaining this. Now the reason we have Alif and else, the reason we have these two keywords is for further functionality of our program. What do I mean by that? Imagine we have the if sentence, right? But now instead of that, what if we do, for example, okay, 7 is not equal to 6, so what we wrote over here will not work. So this will not print out to screen because this condition is not true, it's false, so it won't work. But what I want to do is I want to write another condition. So if 7 equals to 7, which is obviously true, then it should print something else. So instead of doing something like this, where you can do this, for example, and then print 7 is not the same as 6. Instead of doing something like this, where technically the conditionals are separate, what you can do instead is you can merge them together using Alif and else. Now keep in mind that if you want to use both of them, regardless of whether you do or not, if you want to use an Alif, then else always comes at the end. But if you don't want to use an Alif, then you can put else right after if. So what do these keywords actually do? So Alif basically means else if. So think about this. If 7 equals 6 is true, which it is not. 7 is not the same as 6. It'll print 7 is the same as 6 onto the screen. So the condition's false, hence it doesn't work. Then over here we write else if. So another thing. So if this condition over here fails, it's gonna move on to this condition over here. So this has failed over here. So now we write else if 7 equals 7 is true, which it is. 7 is the same as 7, hence it is true. So else if 7 is the same as 7 is true, it is true. So it's gonna print 7 is not the same as 6 onto screen. This should work. And then it's gonna stop over here. It won't continue to this because this condition over here, excuse me for that, this condition over here is not fulfilled. Okay, it's wrong, it doesn't work. So in that case, it's gonna move on to else, which is like your final resort, and you don't put a condition over here. You only put conditions with elif and if, and then you just write the colon directly and you write the last statement. As you can see that all of these keywords don't have indentations between them, but whatever's beneath the keywords, they have indentations over here. But the keywords themselves, so they have space over here, but the keywords themselves are on home base, and then whatever's beneath them, they have indentation. So that's basically how Python works, and using conditionals. And now if I run this, let's break it down again. So if 7 is the same as 6, and if that's true, it is not true, it'll print 7 is the same as 6. It's not true, so it won't print. Python moves on to elif. So if 7 is the same as 7, which it is true, it's gonna print 7 is not the same as 6. So that's what it's gonna print, and then the program's gonna stop over here and it'll not go towards elf. But let's say if instead of this I wrote 5, the program would count it as wrong. It's false, right? 7 is not the same as 5, hence it would move on to else. And over here we don't specify any condition, so if these two fail, no matter what, this last condition is gonna run. So let me just leave it at this for now, and if I run it, this is the only thing that's gonna print. 7 is not the same as 6, and you can see that that's what printed as well when you compare the two. So what if you want the else function to print? What should you do then? Let's replace this with a 5. 7 is not the same as 5, so it will not do whatever's inside over here, so it will not do these statements, and then it'll just go towards else. So now if I run it, it should print nothing works, sad face, and as you can see, that's what it does over here. So that's basically how if conditionals work. Pretty interesting, and it's very useful if you want to make a program that does things based on conditions. So if something's true, it does that, and if something's not true, it doesn't do that. It's pretty fun it's pretty fun to mess around with. So that's basically what conditionals are, and that's all you can do with conditionals. Next video, we're gonna be exploring something very unique called nested conditionals, or nested if statements. So we're not going to be using elif and else, and we'll go into more into detail in the next lessons. But for now, what we're going to be covering next is Boolean types. Okay, so what you can do, instead of writing 7 equals 6, you can just write if true. That's it. Also keep in mind that if you write true as lowercase, so like this, it doesn't work. Python will cause an error. See, undefined name true, it'll think it as a variable, and that's not actually what it is. It's the data type. So you need a capital T and then an RUE, and then you can see that it turns blue, and this is the correct Boolean value. So if true, it's gonna print that. Now if I run this, the first statement, 7 is the same as 6, is gonna print. Why? By writing true, you're basically saying that whatever is beneath this program, if it's true. Now what do you mean by true? Nothing. You're not giving an assignment or something to it for Python to decide if it's true or not. You're just saying if true. So since it's not really comparing anything, the default is just true. It is true. So it just prints this over here. But now over here, if I write if false, again you have to do it with capitals, otherwise it doesn't work. So if capital F false, if I run it now, it's gonna print 7 is not the same as 6. So it's gonna print what's beneath inside Alif, and it's not gonna print this, because by default you're not giving it a condition, you're just saying if it's false. So Python's like, okay, you specified false over here, so I'm just gonna count this as false over here. So instead of writing a random condition like 7 equals 6 or something like that, you can just write true, or you can write false, just so your command can move on. So if you want this to work no matter what, you can do that as well. Now in this scenario it isn't that useful, since there's no use of really writing this if you're gonna hard code this into the program, because then there's not gonna be any options really. So this comes more into handy in nested if, which is what we're gonna cover next video. So those are basically Boolean types over here. And the assignment operator, I'm sure you've understood how it works. It compares the left side with the right side, and if the values are same, then it counts it as true and it moves on, and if it's a false, then it doesn't work. And in the case of conditionals, this is basically how it works. If the condition over here is true, using the equals operator, then it just goes on, and if it's not true, it doesn't. So that's basically how it works. And over here, if I change this to 7 equals 6, and since this is false, it'll directly up towards the last one. Nothing works over here, and you can see that that's what displays on screen as well. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below as well, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.